Today we're going to talk about Workbook 4A, Exercise 13. In the textbook, this is page 33 and 34, and the goal for today is to do some word problems. Let me remind you of the four things we do when we talk about word problems. The first thing you need to do is read the problem carefully, and then think about it. Maybe draw a picture of the problem, write a math sentence, and then the last thing you do is to state the answer to the word problem. Always, always, always do all four of those steps for every word problem you encounter. So let's look on page 33 at problem number 11. The number of cars is 4 times the number of motorcycles in a town. So when I drew that, I drew the cars to be 4 times as many as the motorcycles. There's one box of motorcycles. There are 4 times that. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times the number of motorcycles or number of cars as there were motorcycles. And then it tells us that there are 4,356 cars. And the question is, how many motorcycles are there? Well, so I read it, and as I was reading it, I drew the picture that you see. And then I need to make a math sentence for how many motorcycles there are. Well, motorcycles represent one block. 4,456 represents 4 blocks. So the math sentence that I want to write will be 4,356 divided by 4. One of those blocks will tell me how many motorcycles I have, because each block is the same, and they're 4,356 divided into 4 equal groups. I'll go up here where I have a little bit more room. 4,356 divided by 4. 4 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtracting it 0, bring down the 3. 4 goes into 3 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. Subtract, I get 3, bring down the 5. 4 goes into 35 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. When I subtract and get 3, bring down the 6. 4 goes into 36 9 times. 9 times 4 is 36. Subtract and get 0. So the answer to that division problem is exactly 1,089. There are 1,089 motorcycles. And that makes sense when you think about the numbers, because 4,000 cars is about 4 times as many as 1,000 motorcycles. So we're doing some estimation and seeing that it's the right area of an answer. Then the next question is, how many cars and motorcycles are there altogether? Well, there are 2 options to solve that. One option would be to say, okay, there are 4,356 cars, 1,089 motorcycles. If I add those together, you can add right to left, you can add left to right. 9 and 6 is 15. Then I have 4 tens and 100, 400s, 5,000s. There are 5,445 cars and motorcycles altogether. But did you notice that what I also have is I also have blocks of 1,089, and I have 5 of those blocks, right? There are 4 in the cars and 1 in the motorcycles. So if each block has 1,089 vehicles in it, either motorcycles or cars, then I can multiply. 9 times 5 is 45. 5 times 8 is 32 tens, plus 4 is, 40 tens, plus 4 is 44 tens. 5 times 0 is 0, add 4. 5 times 1 is 5. So either way, I get the same answer, and I need to state the answer. There are 5,445 445, I'm going to call them vehicles altogether. Let's keep going. There's a couple other word problems to practice on page 34. I want to show you how I would read it, think about it, and draw it kind of as I go. So Mr. Cohen earns $2,935 a month. If he spends $780 and saves the rest, how much will he save in 6 months? Okay, I've read it. I have a general idea of what it's about. I'm going to draw a picture. This is going to represent the $2,935 that he makes each month. Then I know that that amount is broken into two groups. 1,780 that is spent, and the rest is saved. And the question is, how much will he save if he does that for 6 months? So this is how we're going to imagine it. We may not draw it that way every time. We might even just put that it's that times 6. Do you see how to solve this problem? How can I know how much this is? The empty part that's missing? Well, that's a subtraction problem. 2,935 subtract 1,780. That will tell me what is left over after he spends $1,780. Remember subtraction? It's been a while, hasn't it? We're going to start with the ones. 5 subtract 0 leaves me with 5. I don't have enough tens to subtract 8, so I'm going to borrow a 10 from the hundreds and make that 13 tens subtract 8, and I'll have 5 tens. 800 minus 700 is 100. 2,000 minus 1,000 is 1,000. So what I now know is if he earns $2,935 a month and he spends $1,780 each month, $1,155 is saved each month. The next part of the process is going to be finding how much he saves in 6 months. So I have to take that number and multiply it times 6 to find out how much he saves in 6 months. That's 1 month, but I'll have it again. I'll have 1,155 again, and again, and again. I guess I only drew 5 of them last time, right? But we're going to have 1,155 6 times. So 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 5 tens is 30 tens plus 3, 33 tens. 6 times 100 is 600 plus 3 is 900. 6 times 1,000 is 6,000. Altogether, he will save $6,930 in 6 months. In this case, I read it, I drew a picture, I wrote a couple of math sentences, and then I stated my answer. Sometimes you have things that have to be done in 2 steps, so make sure you show each of your math sentences as you write them. Okay, last one for this practice is page 34, number 13. Look at the textbook. It tells us that David bought 6 cameras at $1,340 each, and he bought another 8 cameras at $1,248 each. So how much did he spend altogether? So if this is the first camera, and this camera is 1,340, and he bought 6 of these, and then another camera that he bought, this is my really fancy camera, see how this camera? Another camera, he bought 8 of these, and these were $1,248. So if I want to know how much he spent altogether, first I need to know how much he spent when he bought 6 cameras at that price, and then I need to know how much he spent if he bought 8 cameras at this price, and then I'll have to put it all together to find the amount he spent. 1,340 times 6 will give me 0, 24, 18 and 2 is 20. 6 and 2 is 8. 1,248 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 4 is 32. 6 more is 38. 8 times 2 is 16. Add 3 is 19. 8 and 1 is 9. Again, see how quick it is when you can do the multiplication quickly. You'll need to practice and make sure if there's any of those you forget that you just get more and more quick at adding all of those or at multiplying all of those numbers. Now I have to do an addition problem. $8,040 spent on one type of camera, $9,984 spent on another type of camera. When I combine these, I find that he spent $18,024 altogether. Notice that's a three-step problem. I had to do 2 multiplication problems and then an addition problem in order to finish that work. And the only way you're going to know how to do that is if you're reading and paying attention and being very careful and not making any little mistakes, because a little mistake at the top of the problem is going to give you a wrong answer at the end of the problem. And you want to make sure that you get those answers correct. Okay, that's the end of this exercise, and you're ready now to do exercise 13.